Year 6, I'm here to read some more Skellig today for you. We're going to read chapters 13 to 15. I've got myself all cosy by the fire, so I hope you're cosy and ready to listen. You're unhappy, she said. I stood there looking at her. The baby's back in hospital, I said. She sighed. She gazed at the bird that was wheeling high above. It looks like she's going to die, I said. She sighed again. Would you like me to take you somewhere, she said. Somewhere? Somewhere secret. Somewhere nobody knows about. I looked back at the house and saw Dad through the dining room window. I looked at Mina and her eyes went right through me. 5 minutes, she said. He won't know you're gone. I crossed my fingers. Come on, she whispered. And I opened the gate and slipped out into the lane. Quickly, she whispered, and she went low and started to run. At the end of the street, she turned into another back lane. The houses behind the walls here were bigger and higher and older. The back gardens were longer and had tall trees in them. It was Crow Road. She stopped outside a dark green gate. She took a key from somewhere, unlocked it, slipped it inside. I followed her in. Something brushed against my leg. I looked down and saw a cat that had come in through the gate with us. Whisper, said Mina, and she grinned. What? The cat's called Whisper. You'll see him everywhere. The house was black and stoned. The windows were boarded up. Mina ran to the door and opened it. There was a painted red sign over the door. Danger. Take no notice, she said. It's just to keep the vandals out. She stepped inside. Come on, she said. Quickly. I went in and Whisper entered by my side. It was pitch black in there. I could see nothing. Mina took my hand. Don't stop, she said. She led me forward. She led me up some wide stairs. As my eyes got used to the gloom, I made out the shapes of the boarded windows and of dark doorways and broad landings. We ascended 3 stairways, past 3 buildings, and the stairs narrowed and we came to a final narrow doorway. The attic, she whispered. Stay very still in there. They might not want you to be there. They might attack you. What might? How brave are you? They know me and they know Whisper, but they don't know you. How brave are you? As brave as me? I stared at her. How could I know? You are, she said. You have to be. She turned the handle. She held her breath. She took my hand again, led me inside, closed the door behind us. She hunched down on the floor. She pulled me down as well. The cat lay quietly at our side. Stay very still, she whispered. Stay very quiet. Just watch. We were right inside the roof. It was a wide room with a sloping ceiling. The floorboards were split and uneven. Plaster had fallen from the walls. Light came in through an arched window that jutted out through the roof. Glass was scattered on the floor below the window. You could see the rooftops and steeples of the town through it, and the clouds turning red as the day began to close. I held my breath. The room darkened and reddened as the sun went down. What will happen? I whispered. Shh, just watch. Wait and watch. Then she trembled. Look, look. A pale bird rose from some corner of the room and flew silently to the window. It stood there, looking out. Then another came, wheeling once around the room, its wings beating within inches of our faces before it too settled before the window. I didn't breathe. Mina gripped my hand. Mina gripped my hand. I watched the birds, the way their broad round faces turned to each other, the way their claws gripped the window. Then they went, flying silently out into the red dusk. Owls, whispered Mina. Tawny owls. And she looked right into me again and laughed. Sometimes they'll attack intruders, but they saw you were with me. They knew you were okay. She pointed back to the wall, a gaping hole where some plaster and bricks had fallen in. "That's a nest," she said. "There's chicks in there. Don't go near. They'll defend them to death." She laughed at my stunned silence. "Come on," she whispered. "Be quick." We left the attic and ran down the broad stairs and out of the house and into the garden. She locked the door and the garden gate, and we ran through the lanes into our wilderness. "Tell nobody," she whispered. "No," I said. "Hope to die," she said. "What?" "Cross your heart and hope to die." "Cross my heart and hope to die." "Good," she said. She ran away with a whisper at her. I stepped back through our gate, and there was Dad, beyond the dining room window, stretching up to paint the walls. I didn't go to school next day. I was having breakfast with Dad when I started trembling for no reason. He put his arm around me. "What about working with me today?" he asked. I nodded. "We'll get it all done for them, eh? You and me together." I heard him on the phone in the hall, talking to school. "His sister," I heard him say. "Yes, so much all at once. State of distress. Yes, yes." I put on some old jeans. I stirred the green paint he was going to use on the dining room walls. I laid old sheets on the floor. "What should I do?" I asked, as he stepped up onto the stepladders. He shrugged. He looked through the window. "How about getting some of that jungle cleared?" he said. He laughed. "Get covered up first, though, and watch out for the tigers." I wore a pair of old gloves. I used an old pair of scissors too, to cut the stems that wouldn't snap. I dug down with a trowel to get at the roots. Thistle thorns stuck in my skin. There was green sap all over me. I made a big pile of weeds and a heap of stones against the house wall. I found spiders dangling from my hair and clothes. Shiny black beetles scurried away from me. Centipedes squirmed down into the loosened soil. As the morning went on, I cleared a wider and wider space. Dad came out, and we drank some juice together. We sat against the house wall and watched the blackbirds come to where I'd been working. They dug into the soil, collected worms and insects for their young, flew over the gardens and rooftops to their nests. We talked about what we wanted to have out here: a pond, a fountain, a place Mum could sunbathe, somewhere to put the baby's playpen. "We'll have to cover the pond once she's crawling," he said. "Don't want any dangers in her way." We went back to work again. My arms were aching. My skin was stinging. Dust and pollen clogged my nose and throat. I crawled through the weeds, dug down into the earth, slashed and pulled at the stems. I dreamed of the baby crawling out here. She was strong and she kept on giggling and pointing at the birds. Then I saw how close to the garage I had crawled. I'd thought of the man in there. How he was just sat there. How he seemed to be just waiting to die. I stood up and went to the garage door. I stood listening. There was nothing but the usual scuttling and scratching. "You can't just sit there," I called. "You can't just sit there like you're waiting to die." There was no answer. I stood listening. "You can't," I said. No answer. That afternoon we went to the hospital. As we drove out of the street in the car, I saw Mina sitting in the tree in her garden. She had a notebook in her lap and she was writing or drawing. She looked at us and she waved, but she didn't smile. "Strange one, that," said Dad. "Yes," I murmured. In the hospital, the baby was in a glass case again. There were some wires and tubes going into her. She was fast asleep. Mum said everything was fine. The doctors had told her the baby could go home again in a day or two. We looked down through the glass and Mum had put her arm around me. She saw the blotches on my skin. She asked the nurses for some cream and rubbed it in gently. The baby woke up and looked straight into my eyes and screwed up her face like she was smiling. "See," said Mum, "she's going to get better for us. Aren't you, my little chick?" She closed her eyes again. Mum said she would stay at the hospital tonight as well. Dad and I headed home. 27 and 53 again, he said as we drove through the traffic. Yes, I said. Right, he said. A bit more work, then you can go round to the Chinese later. We drove into the street. Mina was sitting on the low wall in her front garden reading a book. She watched us as we drew up, as we walked towards our door. I waved at her and smiled. Take a break, said Dad. You finish the garden tomorrow. Go on. Go and see Mina. The baby might die. The baby might not die, I said. That's good, said Mina. I sat on the wall a few feet away from her. You weren't at school today, she said. I wasn't well. She nodded. Not surprising considering what you've been through. You weren't at school either, I said. I don't go to school. I stared at her. My mother educates me, she said. We believe that school inhibits the natural curiosity and creativity and intelligence of children. The mind needs to be opened out into the world, not shuttered down inside a gloomy classroom. Oh, I said. Don't you agree, Michael? I thought of dashing across the yard with Leaky and Coote. I thought of Monkey Mitford's temper. Thought of Miss Clark's stories. Don't know, I said. Our motto is on the wall by my bed, she said. How can a bird that is born for joy sit in a cage and sing? William Blake. She pointed up into the tree. The chicks in the nest won't need a classroom to make them fly, will they? I shook my head. Well then, she said, my father believed this too. Your father? Yes, he was a wonderful man. He died before I was born. We often think of him watching us from heaven. She watched me with those eyes that seemed to get right inside. You're a quiet person, she said. I didn't know what to say. She began reading again. Do you believe you're descended from apes? I said. Not a matter of belief, she said. It's a proven fact. It's called evolution. You must know that. Yes, we are. She looked up from a book. I would hope, though, she went on, that we also have some rather more beautiful ancestors, don't you? She watched me again. Yes, I said. She read again. I watched the blackbird flying into the tree with the worms drooping from its beak. It was great to see the owls, I said. She smiled. Yes, they're wild things, of course. Killers, savages. They're wonderful. I kept dreaming I heard them all through the night. I listened for them too, sometimes in the dead of night. When all the traffic's gone, I can hear them calling to each other. I joined my hands together, tight with a space between my palms and a gap between my thumbs. Listen, I said. I blew softly into the gap, made a noise an owl makes. That's brilliant, said Mina. Show me. I showed her how to put hands together, how to blow. At first she couldn't do it, and then she could. She hooted and grinned. Brilliant, she said, so brilliant. Leaky showed me, I said, my mate at school. I wonder if you did it at night, if the owls would come. Maybe. Maybe you should try it. I will tonight. I will. Hoot, she went. Hoot, hoot, hoot. Brilliant, she said, and she clapped her hands. There's something I could show you as well, I said. Like you showed me the owls. What is it? I don't know. I don't even know if it's true or if it's a dream. That's all right. Truth and dreams are always getting muddled. I have to take you there and show you. She opened her eyes wide and grinned, like she was ready to go right now. Can't go now, I said. Along the street, Dad opened the front door and waved. I've got to go, I said. I've got to go and get 27 and 53. She raised her eyebrows. Mystery man, she said. That's you. The blackbird flew out of the tree again. I stood up to go. I said, do you know what shoulder blades are for? She giggled. Do you not even know that? She said. Do you? It's a proven fact, common knowledge. They're where your wings were, and where they'll grow again. She laughed again. Go on then, mystery man. Go and get your mysterious numbers.